Morning. I wanted to talk about the guide that was released a couple days ago. I needed a break from it. That shit was hard. It was like months of research. And then once you release it out into the world, you never know how it's going to be received or if you communicate clearly. But majority of responses, actually like 99% of responses were really, really, really great. And it was clear that we were clear about what we were trying to communicate. So that's good and very hard to do with complex subjects like this, especially during a time like this of grieving and complex grieving and nuance. But there's those 1%, and I'm petty. So I'm going to break down some of the arguments against the guide. First off, the guide wasn't even my idea. It was a white member of our team that wanted to put together a guide. And for me, being Asian, for me, being in elitist academic circles, I don't know what people's baseline is because my baseline education is so much higher than the average person. So it's been a problem that I deal with regularly where some things need to be broken down to the very, very baseline, the very, very simple things. And some people have never even come across these subjects before. So I don't know what people's baseline is. Like, I thought, racism and prejudice was baseline for most people. For white people, no. So they need a little, intellectual push and to do it in an educational way. So it wasn't even my idea. I was just brought on to it. So talking about this slide, there's a lot more things in the soil. A lot more. But like I said, baseline education. There's some baseline things that you need to know that is underneath the soil. It doesn't mean it encompasses all of the Asian experience. There's lots of things that are missing from that, such as U.S. imperialism, but that's a whole other subject and course, multiple courses. So also we need to keep in mind that this is IG. Like, people are 13 on this app. And so how can we communicate effectively without getting people lost on the first slide? So just to let you know, there's more on the bottom of the soil. Now, this slide has been getting more reposts than anything. And the thing that I've seen about it has been like, I disagree with this slide. Well, I'm sorry that you disagree with reality, but this myth was established in the 60s or 70s. And this racial triangulation theory was written about in 1999 by Claire Jean Kim. There's lots of researchers who have then expounded upon racial triangulation theory. This is the reality of which our laws, our society have been based on, how Asians have been racially positioned. But it's a myth in that like Asians actually don't experience this heightened level of privilege. And I have a whole statistical breakdown on Smithsonian APA for that. The data doesn't back it up. Hence this next slide. And this has been expanded on. Racial triangulation theory has been expanded on by researchers beyond that up until 2015, I believe, was the last research paper published on it. So I didn't make it up. So this slide was a description of the myth. And then this slide is a description of reality, how oppression exists, and the power and privilege, and how they can all simultaneously be linear. It's not a hierarchy. It should be more of a circle. So I hate when people post out of order and only partial parts of the packet, because this is a packet in a whole. So just taking that one slide and not posting the next slide, which goes together, is breaking context. But this is all to say, it's not my opinion. That's researched, okay? There are papers published on this. Like, we're not making it up. It's not our opinion, okay? We're not pushing no agenda. It's been researched. Second of all, the next slide, this slide, and we all knew that we were going to get heat for it. And actually it hasn't been that much heat, so it's all right. But people think that we make that up too, and we didn't make these up. All of this data, behavioral data, is public. So if you go to any non-Asian POC affinity space, look at their complaints about Asians. Pick them out, okay? Count them. See recurring themes, and then condense them into a slide. That's what we did. Same thing for Asians. Go into Asian affinity spaces. What are the complaints? Count them. And then pull out recurring themes, then put them on the slide. Then we each sat down. We asked ourselves, are these real life experiences that we've had? Do we also agree with these, right? And, you know, every Black person on the team had experienced every single thing on the Asian column. And every Asian person on the team experienced everything on the non-Asian POC column. So not only did we corroborate with our lived experience, we corroborated with the themes that we had pulled out from the behavioral data that's public. And we didn't make it up. It's all like pulled behavioral data. So when you discredit it or say like, oh, this doesn't exist, well, that's participating in gaslighting. That's participating in erasure. It's participating in whataboutisms. It's like, no, you can't deny somebody either column's reality. If they say that that's what they're experiencing, that's what. So that's been disheartening to read, just the blatant crossing out of entire sides, one side or the other side. And it's like, no, those were all public data that we counted and pulled themes from. And also, there is an arrow in between them, right? The arrow in between them signifies a feedback loop. So what is experiencing on this column can lead to this. What's being experienced on this column can lead to this. And so it's a constant feedback loop. It leads to each other. At some point, that feedback loop has to stop. And it's when those behaviors stop is when the feedback loop stops. On either put Black. No, this is not feedback loop. It leads to each other. At some point, that feedback loop has to stop. And it's when those behaviors stop is when the feedback loop stops on either side. And so, and then I also saw like non-Asian POC crossed out and like put Black. No, this is not Black people. This is people who are non-Asian. Our country is built on xenophobia. So we're all bound to have xenophobia embedded into us because it's literally baked into our society. The only slide that we ever mentioned Black people was on the model minority myth slide, and that's because model minority myth was built on the basis of anti-Blackness. It also was based on the basis of Mexican immigration. So that was the only reason that Black was mentioned on that one slide, because that is what the model minority myth was built on. But it has never been mentioned on any other slides, and it's not targeted towards Black people. So I think that was a misunderstanding, despite words being carefully selected, right? Carefully. But people hear different than what is being said because of their own traumas. But I'm not responsible for your trauma, nor your triggers. And I think healing is imperative when reading the slide and getting triggered. Then we dedicated 2 whole slides. So the first 3 slides are just descriptions of a reality, right? Non-opinion based, all based on data and research of those who came before us. Then we have 2 whole slides on just white supremacy and addressing white people. And the white member of our team was like, I don't feel comfortable having 2 whole slides on such an important packet. And the rest of us were like, well, if not you, then who? We don't have any power. If you look at Congress, or you look at the Senate, or you look at the 1% who hold the wealth in this country, all the landowners, it's not us. So who's going to break down that? It can't be us, because we don't have anything to break down. We don't have any power or privilege. So that is white people's job. That's why we dedicated. And so we went ahead, dedicated that slide to him, and he crafted his own script. And we said that I don't know how to talk to white people, and neither does anybody else. So he talked to his own community, talked to his own people in a way that is receptive, right? We don't want to place shame or blame or anything like that, but we do want to place responsibility and give people hope and inspiration, because in the end, we're all in this together, right? Like, white people suffer under white supremacy as well. And that is a whole nother course. So that was on him, and he stepped into it. And so that's why 2 whole slides were dedicated to that subject. And we mentioned white supremacy. I think 4 out of the 9 slides and 10 slides and one being a cover page. So people were like, you're not putting enough emphasis on white people. I'm like, I mean, we kind of did. And finally, I don't know why people would even have a problem with this slide, but I saw one that says unity and crossed out, and it said end white supremacy. Ending white supremacy saves lives. And I had to think about that one because that's not wrong. That's correct. Ending white supremacy does save lives. But what do white people think when they hear white supremacy? And also, how do we get to ending white supremacy? What are the steps leading up to that? And it's unity, right? Like when white people get on board and we unify, that's when systems can come down. Or if you study revolutions, they're taken, and it's very, very violent. And if you're ready for that smoke, all right, then let's do it. But if you're not, you gotta get white people on board in order to dismantle this system so that it's equitable for everybody, inclusive of white people. So I thought that was a little bit like, you got to think about branding and marketing and like, how are you branding your words, your slogans? And is it reaching the people that you want it to reach? People can understand unity. Do people understand really end white supremacy? Especially white people who might feel triggered by that word, and which is a whole other thing, right? We're not trying to coddle people, but we also want to meet people where they're at. Where are they at in their understanding? And people can understand unity. People can be on board when you invite them to be on board. So we all need to come together. And so that's my breakdown of the slides. I know some of you probably have gotten some smoke from it, so maybe now that you have some vocabulary to go ahead and express what is being meant in these slides. And by the way, all the critiques were by other POC, which is why we even had this slide, which is when you consume so much whiteness, you consume so much oppression, and you start to critique other people in ways that are not well researched, based off of your own trauma, based off of behaviors that have been done to you, so you start to do it to other people. You're just acting in the same exact ways. So check yourself. And finally, to the bitch who was like, anybody can get on Canva and write any old thing. Bitch, it wasn't even fucking made on Canva, first of all. And second of all, it was months of research. So the professor in me is like, I will not engage with people who are not my peer. And I'm sorry, if you're just not my peer, I just can't. You're gonna have to talk to somebody more basic.
If you keep misinterpreting everything, she's going to block you. She's going to block you.